comes to the Dragon Ball Super manga, a lot of people like to down on it simply for the fact that it isn't Toriyama drawing it, that it isn't the anime, and that there are big text dumps that ruin the pacing. While some of that may be true, a lot of the flack is quite unjustified. The Moro and Granolah sagas each had their flaws, sure, but each saga had also plenty of things about them which made them excel in the modern age of Dragon Ball. Toyotaro's no longer pulling his punches, and is here to tell you that he's not playing around anymore, and going forward, he will go all out to make sure that Dragon Ball is the best it could possibly be, and that he can make the best he possibly can. According to him, he is done training, and he is now about to get serious. And if you read chapter 87 of manga, you can see what he was talking about. It got dark fast. So how could his two previous sagas and stories that he had supposedly been given quite a lot of free rein and leeway to develop by Toriyama be improved upon if they were to be adapted into a future anime? I say if because there is a slim chance that they may be skipped, since Akio Iyoku, who is Toriyama's spokesperson these days, did say that the anime and manga can exist in two separate timelines. They don't have to match each other. I mean, they can, but they don't have to. So that left questions hanging for sure for the fans. But for the purpose of today's discussion, let's go with them being adapted. The year is getting closer and closer to its conclusion, so it's about time that we, once again like we did last year, talked about our hopes for the next Dragon Ball animation project, whatever it may be. We might get a new series next year, so naturally, we hope it will be based on the two recent sagas of the manga, the Galactic Prisoner saga, which is pretty much colloquially known amongst the fans as the Moro one, and Granola the Survivor. We briefly touched upon the first one in one of our previous videos, but time has passed since then, and we have some fresher ideas. And we also wanted to throw Granola into the mix because, hey, it's done now. It's not guaranteed that a new Dragon Ball product will necessarily focus on adapting these things wholesale. After all, the manga and the movies seem like their own animals for the time being, so they could easily go in a different direction. But that being said, they're in a pretty unique, for Dragon Ball at least, situation, in which they have two sagas, full sagas, ready to adapt. One of the issues of the early Super series was that the anime and the manga were just doing their own things at the same time, instead of going off of the manga and adapting it to anime, like pretty much most anime tend to do that were adapted from a manga, and how Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z did it. They had months to spare between the manga version being released and the anime version. Early Super had much less direction, and it showed. Now though, they can change that, go back to the old norm. With plenty of time and buffer to work with, the anime could be a completely different beast, and they, the TV staff, can add or change plenty of things, some of which can even help with some of the more glaring issues of those sagas at the time of the manga's adaptation. Seriously, the anime versions of both stories could turn these narratives into very good ones. This being especially since Toyotaro is often accused of drawing storyboards rather than manga sequences like traditional ones. This could be now him being in his element. We don't think that the story beats themselves will be all that different as, let's say, the Goku Black and the Tournament of Power arcs, but it is mostly because those stories were created by both the anime staff and Toyotaro at the same time, based off of Toriyama's own notes. They interpreted the same holy text in their own ways. Now though, the anime staff have a completed and fleshed out version to go from Toyotaro and Toriyama, providing more stability and less confusion and guesswork. But then again, the anime has always added a lot of filler anyway, and sometimes said filler becomes iconic in the eyes of the fans, so, you know, not all filler needs to be bad. And the previous Super staff knew how to do some of the slice of life filler really well, make it very appealing. More of that, and less of the copy Vegeta saga. Yes, Brian Drummond was the only saving grace of that, and obviously it was the dub version, not the original Japanese one, hence why the Potofu mini-arc these days is not as reviled post-dub. So let's start from the beginning. Some elements that Super could latch onto to fully enrich the stories of each saga. Number 1, more Moro backstory. As Moro himself is a pretty ancient being, it would be awfully nice to see more flashbacks of his, showing us all his original rise to power. I mean, Game of Thrones is doing it, Lord of the Rings is doing it, so why not Dragon Ball? Just how did he become Universe 7's most feared mage? Maybe you could connect him to Bibidi, finally. and legitimately, something that the fandom likes to speculate about. It would be a very easy way to enhance vertically the lore of the show, instead of doing it horizontally and making just more characters that the fans don't really care about. If you attached Moro to Bibbidi, you go like, ooh, there's Bibbidi! Ooh, I remember Bibbidi! Ooh, I like this! After all, seeing all the Kais fight Boo was perhaps one of the greatest elements of the Boo saga. That little bit of contextual addition was excellent. Although it does make Shin look very bad, more bad, since he knew the composition of Boo and chose not to tell the Dragon Team, keeping things unnecessarily vague. So seeing the Goatman taking on the likes of the Grand Supreme Kai, having been brought back to the surface by Boo, would be a true delight, showing us a little bit of that ancient side of the Dragon Ball universe. What's rather cool about this notion is that those scenes don't have to be made into a hasty flashback sequence like Jiren's, but could easily be a fully dedicated episode or two. All because of the importance to the original premise of Moro. You really got to establish him as being the big bad. It's all about establishing his reputation, whilst also harking back to what made the Boo saga so interesting. More about the time when Shin was but a humble East Supreme Kai instead of being the Supreme Kai. Not only that, but we can also go as far as giving Moro more time on screen in the modern era, particularly with Cranberry. Seriously, how did he end up shepherding the Ram Man? Pun intended. Showing how the old goat managed to successfully sway the ex-Frieza soldier to his side, and maybe even get a little flashback from him as well. His death would probably be slightly less gruesome though in the manga, since the anime airs on Sunday mornings these days for the kiddywinks. But other than that, there's a lot of potential here. And speaking of potential, number 2, Defenders of the Earth, assemble! If there is one sequence that has to be animated without question or pause, it would have to be this moment. After all, Superhero proved to us that Dragon Ball can pull off the modern superhero veneer of the movies, so why not bring that to the main story? And yeah, we know that Resurrection F had the 1000 soldier battle, perhaps one of the very few scenes in that movie that has aged well, in theory. Some of the visuals are a little ropey nowadays, but we're being generous here. Still, I feel that this one, the Moro sequence, is a little more fun than that. Far less perilous than the Resurrection F outing, since we have everyone doing something cool. Even Yamcha. It's more of a chance for all of the characters that we grew up with to do stuff that is unique to them, and not be window dressing, or they're just there for the sake of fan service and not doing something that's unique to them. They all have a part to play in this production. And you can expand on it so much more in the animated version, showing our heroes and the patrollers fighting Moro's goons in more detail, with all they have, and being quite badass to boot. Because let's be honest, seeing characters other than Goku and Vegeta beating up bad guys is always a welcome sight. And if the anime added more of Chaozu taunting the Metal Men, we wouldn't say no to that. Number 3, the senzu conundrum. Look, I know that we've talked about this a lot, but it needs to be said again. This moment in chapter 65 is infamous for the pure fact that all it does is ape the Cell Saga, and nothing more. And even then it was controversial. It's unnecessary drama and it makes all concerned look like morons. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to remove that, sadly. All because the story needs to remain roughly the same for it to work. And Moro needs that beam for his last big hurrah and his ultimate undoing. Although him getting his arm back was much more clever than Goku acting stupid just because. But can we please frame it differently? So that it's more of a necessary task rather than something that just comes out of nowhere? Or better yet, have some lasting consequence, Goku getting told off. We've got Krillin over here. Can he tell Goku afterwards that what he did was pretty reckless, instead of just going along with it and praising every single decision Goku makes? If Krillin chewed out his best friend for doing something so dangerous, that would at least make Goku reflect a little bit. It's not too much to ask, right? You know, a character acting stupid and acknowledging said idiocy properly is much better than, "Oh, that's our Goku!" End credits. And in this case, this would really help the development, especially since he is behaving much better, Goku, in the Granola saga. So without taking much more time with Moro and Senzu, let's talk about Granola saga. So, more flashbacks for Granola. Again, the backstories of these new characters, they're simply fascinating. We could easily see some more about Planet Cereal from before the time the Saiyans attacked. Really get to grips as to why the Cerealians were so good at what they did with their red eyes, and why Frieza had to put a stop to them thanks to his army of monkeys. I know that Granola's traumas allowed him to only recall the worst times of his life, but it'd been a really neat idea for him to see the good times as well, give us a bigger insight into Cerealian life, as their society was pretty interesting, as well as their kindredship with the Namekians because they lived on there too. It makes more sense also with how well received the Broly movie's inclusion of the Saiyan Society went down. Why not do it here? We could also see Granola doing some more bounty hunting, him training and doing stuff with Alec on the daily, before the saga, as this was when the character was at his most appealing, when he was a straight up bounty hunter. Again, he's a cool character, but we feel that his story was not fully realised. Number 2. Do not spend too long on Bardock's story. You might think that we're being inconsistent in our thought process here, but hear us out. As much as we like flashbacks and backstories, we've got 2 points in this video alone speaking at how we'd like to see more flashbacks, but please do not make the Bardock one the core part of the story. This is not Bardock's story, it's Granola's story. The difference between this and the last point is that the last one concerns the saga's main character. Here, it is nice that Goku finally got a chance to learn about his past, yes, but I'd rather have it as something that Goku learns in a more by-the-way manner instead of it taking time away from Granola's story, rather than redefining the way we look at the saga as a whole. As in the end, it wasn't that important to the finale of the story anyway. Like, at all. 1 episode, 2 episodes, tops, don't make it any longer. It's not the Bardock saga. He already has quite a lot of content dedicated to himself anyway. And if you still want a Bardock saga Triple T, just make it afterwards. Perhaps Goku delving deeper into his Saiyan past, finally wanting to recognize it. Have like an Aladdin King of Thieves type thing. That'd be cool. Instead of that narrative thread intruding on Granola's antics. Number 3. Give Granola proper closure in his own saga. Oh golly gee, Goku and Vegeta. I made a mess and I really need to clean it up. I may fight you someday, but probably not, because you guys say that to every strong character you meet. And so far only Broly has reappeared, but hey, this is my story over, I guess. Also, we won't be talking about what just happened with Frieza. Nursery. Yes. This is basically how his final scene went down. And there's no catharsis for the character. No acknowledgement of Frieza's terrifying power. Yes, we get that Granola was trying to keep Monaito alive and that he was trying to assert what he said in not wanting revenge anymore, but the animated version has to frame this section better, to show Granola remembering Planet Cereal as it was before his destruction. Him and Monaito deciding to finally move closer to their Shigerian neighbours and properly integrate with them, finally accepting this world as their home now. And we know that anime is very good at doing those climactic ending sequences. Just look at how the Tournament of Power ended. Despite all of the Tournament of Power's flaws, it's still a beautiful sequence and a better closure to the saga than characters just leaving hastily because Toyotaro just wanted to draw Moro. Come on, it can be done. Anyway, that's it for now. We've written this in late October and produced it in mid-November. Hopefully we won't be getting any breaking news anytime soon of the script's release. But anyway, leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later!